Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7 update 1.52. We're going to continue on with the third and final vehicle review this time for update 1.52. Of course, I'm talking about probably one of the most controversial vehicles that has launched post-launch in GT7, the Toyota HIACE van. So I will talk about the van itself, how it works, and really if it's a decent purchase in game, but I'll also touch on another subject as we go through. But let's get started on the stats and the price of the van itself. As you can see, the Toyota HIACE van DX 2016 has a very minuscule PP rating of 288.50, displacement of 1998cc, an FR drivetrain, 134 brake horsepower, weighing a fairly hefty 1680 kilograms, and is naturally aspirated. This can be all yours for a very small price of 25,000 credits. Okay, so let's get started with the review itself for the Toyota HIACE. This is definitely something a bit different from the norm in the fact that it is a van and not a car that we do typically see in Gran Turismo 7. Now, honestly, it's really not as bad as a lot of people will make out. In fact, one thing I will give it credit for is the customizability of this thing. You can strip all of the back end out, so it is a fully stripped out race van. And yes, it does have a day one engine swap in the form of a pretty ridiculous BRZ drift engine. So it does have a plethora of body modifications. You can drift engine swap it up to 1200 brake horsepower, which is just as ridiculous as it sounds. So overall, it does have the option to turn it from a very boring van into something absolutely ridiculous. Now, talking about the standard van itself, it really isn't going to blow you away at all. It is a typically pretty boring vehicle, I'm not going to lie about it. It's very much planted, it's very slow, very heavy, and honestly, to get anything out of it, you are basically required to put at least some form of upgrades on. Now, of course, when you do get into the deeper customization of the vehicle, you start stripping the back end out, adding body kits on, which they are much more than I originally thought, and of course, changing it to your personal taste. Then honestly, there is a lot to do with this van. You can go ahead and customize it pretty well in its standard form without the engine swap. And of course, if you want to do a drift engine swap, then you're going to be in for a surprise, as this thing is just absolutely mental. So to those players that might think this is an absolutely ridiculous post-launch addition to Gran Turismo 7, at least in its standard form, are you correct? Absolutely. The standard van is pretty boring and definitely needs some form of upgrades to at least make it worth your time. However, what I do appreciate is the fact that there is a ton of customization options for this thing. Of course, the engine swap, whether you want to run the standard engine or upgraded engine, there is a bunch of ways to tune this thing, and that is where a lot of the fun factor from this van actually comes. So yes, in its standard form it's pretty terrible, but definitely there are multiple ways to actually upgrade it. So to cut a long story short, do I hate the van? Absolutely not. However, this is going to bring me into a, I guess, different issue that is, I guess, overall about the series of Gran Turismo itself. Now, I am a day one Gran Turismo player. I have been playing this series religiously ever since around about 1998 or 1999, which means I started off in the PS1 era with the likes of Gran Turismo 1 and Gran Turismo 2. Now, when it comes to the Gran Turismo 2 onwards to the likes of Gran Turismo 5 and 6, honestly, vehicles like this were just not that weird and random to see. However, of course, with the lower vehicle count and Gran Turismo 7 coming off the back of Gran Turismo Sport, it is a lot rarer to see as ridiculous vehicles as the HIACE in Gran Turismo now. And I think that's where the issue with the van itself actually comes from. I honestly think those people that have been around the Gran Turismo series for a very long time will appreciate that the van just isn't that ridiculous to what we've seen in other Gran Turismo games. In fact, it's rather quite normal to see something pretty mundane get turned into an absolute beast and then thrown around different tracks around the world. It's just the Gran Turismo norm. They kicked it off with the likes of Gran Turismo 2 and some of their weird and wacky used cars that we'd probably never even heard of before. The Daihatsu Midget definitely comes to mind, and then of course you can just throw them around in racing form and more ridiculous ways than you can think of. So I guess what I'm getting onto here is that fans of the original Gran Turismo games, or more long-term fans, won't really find the inclusion of the Toyota HIACE really that different or really that odd. This is something that has happened with the games for a long time. However, I do think that it does show a key divide in the actual fan base of Gran Turismo. I think those that have joined in with the likes of Gran Turismo Sport and the more esports orientated FIA licensed kind of game will probably find the Toyota HIACE completely off and completely random, and then go on to ask for, of course, updated GT3 models. Whilst we would all like them, of course that is a whole different ballgame when it comes to licenses, exclusive rights and deals within the gaming sphere. So I definitely think those more newer fans might jump to the Toyota HIACE and think it's absolutely terrible and a completely random and weird addition to the franchise or the game itself. And I think that definitely highlights that there's a massive divide in the community itself. You've of course got the long-term fans who won't find the Toyota HIACE that difficult or weird to see actually happening in game, and those that have joined a little bit later that are of course probably more competitive and more esports orientated with the likes of Gran Turismo Sport, who will probably see this and think that is absolutely ridiculous. So I guess what I'm getting at is that this van really just highlights the difference in the actual Gran Turismo fan community. If we look at it from the GT7 perspective, it's an issue that the game has had ever since its launch really. It has a bit of an identity crisis. Of course, it was promised that this would be a return to form. It has a number in the title, and to long-term fans that would mean that Gran Turismo 7 is a proper numbered title and a callback to the original series and games. However, we also see the continuation of Gran Turismo Sport in the sense of sport mode is still fully there, ranked racing is still fully there, the whole clean racing push is still fully there, and of course the World Series itself. So again, that is where Gran Turismo Sport players are mainly going to go. And of course, they want the most up-to-date GT cars, and that absolutely makes sense considering that is the main roster of vehicles that are shown off for the more esports side. And again, something like the van comes along, and of course, they're probably going to trash it or find it absolutely ridiculous. Again, just proving that really Gran Turismo is currently suffering from a bit of an identity crisis. So I honestly think that the van just proves that Gran Turismo 7 doesn't necessarily know what it wants to be. You've got the whole World Series push and the esports thing on one hand, whilst post-launch releasing the likes of the Toyota Alphard and now the Toyota HIACE. Honestly, I think if anything, the HIACE entering Gran Turismo 7 just proves there's a pretty big divide in the community, and Gran Turismo 7 as a whole seems to lack direction on whether it's actually that return to form that was promised, or honestly keeping itself as a World Series and a carry-on from Gran Turismo Sport. So for someone like me, do I love the van? Absolutely. It's highly customizable, there's a ridiculous engine swap, and you can have a whole bunch of fun upgrading this thing. However, I definitely think mileage will vary depending on the type of Gran Turismo player you are. So overall, was this a really weird and wacky offshoot vehicle for update 1.52? To someone like me, not really, but maybe to you it's different. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you think the van really just shows off that there's a divide in the community itself and that Gran Turismo 7 doesn't really know what it wants to be? I'll be interested to hear your thoughts, and I'll go more in depth in a couple of days' time. Anyway, have a fantastic start to your week. Take care, guys. Peace.